Hey everyone, my name is Penny Zanker, and it's time to reset. This podcast goes beyond just navigating change. It's about new ways of thinking about how you can approach challenges, how you can shift your mindset when needed, create some space and grace for yourself so that you can rethink, recharge, and reprioritize when and where needed. Are you ready to unlock your full potential? Thank you for hitting play and sharing this next episode with me. It's time to reset. Hello and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zanker and I'm your host. And we're always looking for fresh and new ideas to bring to you, maybe some nuggets that you've never heard before or hear it in a different way and it lands differently. So I'm excited today. We're going to dig into the legal space. These people, they've got time management issues. So we're going to hear about some really great time management tips and how to stay focused from Dina Cataldo today. She's a leading legal industry expert, a master's certified coach, speaker, podcast host who helps lawyers take control of their life and their law practice. But I'm sure there's a lot of tips for all of us out there too. So don't you worry. She's the creator of Time Peace, and peace is P-E-A-C-E, peace in our soul for lawyers, Time Peace for lawyers, and the host of a popular podcast called Be a Better Lawyer. Dina's insights and advice have been featured on various prominent platforms, including speaking at the Alabama State Bar annual meeting and speaking on podcasts like Law Firm Autopilot and Maximum Lawyer podcast. And through her coaching and speaking, Dina has positively impacted the lives of hundreds of lawyers, helping them to manage their time, overcome overwhelm, boost self-confidence, and find fulfillment in their careers. So without further ado, Dina, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Penny. I really appreciate it.
I think we can all use a little inner peace because this whole time management discussion and everything, isn't that what it's really about? Are we looking for balance? We're looking for inner peace. We're looking for fulfillment. We're looking for meaning in our lives. So I love that you use that in your book title. Tell me why you chose it.
It is the title of my program where I have a group of lawyers that come in for 12 weeks. And I chose it because when lawyers come to me, they come to me stressed out and overwhelmed and anything but peaceful. And the word that kept coming up over and over again as I was working with my one-on-one clients was, before I came to you overwhelmed and now I feel at peace. What I really want is peace. What I really desire is to be with my family and not be thinking about work, to just feel relaxed and peaceful. And when I use the word peace, it's because every single lawyer that I've ever spoken to, when I ask them at base, what is it you want? They all want peace. And it made sense. And that's what I discovered I needed because I was in the law for about 16 years and I wanted peace for myself. And I had to make it for myself before I could do anything in my life that felt aligned.
So that's totally. We have to do it for ourselves. That's how we learn and can share what we've gained from that. But it's interesting. So the first thought that comes to my mind is, okay, we all want peace. And then I'm thinking, okay, are you still working in the law? No, you left. So do you have to leave in order to get peace? Do we have to leave our jobs where we feel like we're not at peace? I think that is maybe the number one thing, right? That people,
and so
inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, I found peace before I left the law. In fact, I think it's a requirement for, this is my belief, is that if we're unhappy because we think we are unhappy because we're, quote, overwhelmed, we want to take a look at what we're creating in our life. Because if we start blaming the job, if we start blaming our boss, if we start looking outside of us, right, who look every other way but us, we never take authority over our lives. So when I was a lawyer, I was practicing 50 to 70 hour weeks. And that was early on and throughout a lot of my career. And when I discovered what I needed to learn to find peace, I needed to discover it while I was in I want to call it like the pot in the kettle, right? Where I'm really steeped in the fire. And so I needed to learn that for myself because I wanted to build a business. Like
Mm-hmm.
before I even discovered coaching or what any of the stuff that I do now is, I knew that I wanted a business. But if I'm working 50 to 70-hour weeks, how can I create space in my life to even discover other things that I might be interested in? And
Sure.
so I needed to learn how to manage my time and figure out, where am I wasting my time? Why am I spinning my wheels here? Why am I procrastinating in certain areas? Why? And look at myself and do it in a way where I am not pointing the finger at someone else and saying, okay, what can I do about this to get the ball rolling so I can create more space in my life and have the life that I truly desire?
So many things I want to ask you, but I want to start with the business model of lawyers, consultants, coaches. I was in that, I worked in that space. I was in consulting for a number of years, right out of school and everything. It's an exchange for hours for dollars, right? What do they call it again? Chargeable
Billables.
hours, billable
Billables.
hours. Because maybe that's one of the first places that people blame, right? Is my income is limited or my ability to grow is limited because I only have so many hours and every hour that I work, right, is billable. What would you say to personally? I changed the model, right? So I changed the
Mm.
business model. I don't know if that's possible in some places, but that you start charging on value or a fixed product, types of things. There's other ways to approach the market other than an exchange for 1 hour equals X, right? What's your take on that and where people might blame the business model?
What's interesting about that, and there's two parts to this. One, there are different business models, and you can switch business models. I know a lot of people who train lawyers who say don't use the billable hour model, where you can make package offers, right? Be able to create these packages where you're including things. I am actually, if you own your own business, I do love packages, but I also love the billable hour. I think it's something that needs to be part of anything that you do because there's always going to be time unaccounted for that you want to be able to bill. But I want to bring this really into focus for those attorneys who, and maybe people who are listening, who exclusively work with an hourly rate. And when you work with an hourly rate in, let's say, big law, you will have a certain amount of hours you are required to bill every single year. What I have found with lawyers who have that requirement is that their focus is so strained, so stressed on, I'm not having enough hours, that they are shutting themselves down in a way that paralyzes them so that they are not doing what they need to do in order to hit their billable hours. And those are things like procrastinating, things like finding everything to do that they can possibly do besides the thing that's essential. There's the inability to delegate. They're just not giving anything away to their assistants because they're fearful that they aren't going to be done correctly. They don't know how to create standard operating procedures and to train their employees so that they can do those things and take those things off their plate. They have so many fears about what other people will think about them if they're not in the office. So even if they're hitting their hours, if they leave early, they're scared to leave because they don't want anyone else to think that they're lazy. In fact, they're telling themselves they're lazy. And so they're often not able to do as much work as they really are. And what I mean by that is it's not reflected in their billables because they're not billing contemporaneously. So there's so many variables there and so many things they have control over that they, in that moment, don't realize they have control over.
So the billable hours in itself, there's an over focus on it that creates this overwhelm and stress around it. So what's that first step that somebody might do that's in that type of a model so I have a reset practice that I talk about in my book, The Reset Mindset, and it's about step back, get perspective, and realign, just a thinking system. So it strikes me, what do they do to step back and to get perspective so that they can realign around the best way forward?
One of the things that I do with my clients is I help them reconnect with their emotions. I don't know about you, but lawyers, we tend to be disconnected from our emotions.
Do they have emotions? Just
I don't
kidding.
think I have had emotions until I was 35, right? Like, so my feelings, I really had them locked away because when you're a high achiever, when you're ambitious, you are just go. You want to keep going after the next thing. And when you're doing that, you will drive through anxiety. You will drive through overwhelm, dread, all of those feelings. And even if you feel horrible, you will push yourself to the brink. And that's oftentimes where my clients are. So the first thing I really want to do is help them reconnect with that feeling that they have. That's anxiety. And what is anxiety? It's just a feeling in your body. So let's stay with that and understand you have a vibration that's happening based on what you're thinking about, whatever situation you're currently facing. So in the question that you just asked me, when it's very similar to this reset process that you have, it's noticing, first of all, okay, I'm feeling anxiety. Let me pause for a second. I'm feeling stress. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling angry. Let me pause for just a second and notice this long enough to acknowledge it and not react to it. Because if we're reacting to it, that might look like, oh, I'm going to procrastinate. Oh, I'm going to check social media. I'm going to check my email again. I'm going to clean the house instead of work on a file, whatever it is, versus, okay, let me stay here for a moment, take a breath, recognize what I'm feeling, name it, and then ask myself, what is it that I want to do next? And that answer might be, I need to take a walk. That answer might be, let me just sit here and check this last email, and then I'm done for the day. It's going to depend on where you are.
That question's what helps them get perspective. They step away from it, they notice it, they detach from it, and then they ask, what do they want to do next? So now that I'm feeling anxious, what do I want to do next?
It's noticing that they feel anxious is the first thing, because usually they don't even notice anything. So they just keep working through whatever it is they're feeling versus just feeling it and acknowledging it. So usually when you acknowledge it, you could say, oh, I'm stressed. I'm feeling angry because I was thinking about something that happened 5 minutes ago with my assistant.
So we can add a because, which gives us the why, right?
Can.
It gives us a connection as to where it's coming from.
Yeah. And you say, oh, okay. I think where we oftentimes, I don't want to add that on as like part of a system. I see how you're trying to systematize it for this particular thing.
No, not necessarily. I just want people to be able to do it for themselves and for it to work.
And the reason why I hesitate to say because is because so often we tend to blame something outside of ourselves versus saying, okay, what do I have control of? So that's why I just say, okay, what do I want to do next? It's okay, what do I have control of here? I have control of whether or not I sit here and finish this email, or whether I decide I want to go for a walk and reset, do something that's going to get me out of the environment and then bring myself back. So that you're not necessarily staying in the anxiety, you are now switching gears.
Right. Okay, awesome. And because a lot of people, they're thinking, okay, now they're understanding what the emotion has to do with time management, because it's causing procrastination and wasted time and wasted energy and all of that.
Yeah.
So what's next? So I find that I decide, okay, I'm going to go take a walk, or I'm going to shake it out or whatever. What comes next?
I don't really even put it into here's step 1, 2, 3, and 4. Because let's say you do that, right? You reset, you do the thing that you're going to do, and you're fine. And then you just notice throughout the day. But one of the things that I do notice that is a big problem I see in the legal profession, and I think is also predominant anywhere, is how we talk to ourselves about anything. So we could be in a similar scenario that I just described, and then how we talk to ourselves about how we behaved or what we think we should have done, and how we are compassionate or not compassionate to ourselves is going to make a big difference in how we approach our days. So we could have that same disagreement with an employee, a staff member, and we feel angry about it. And we do the reset that I just said, we go for a walk. But if you keep telling yourself, I shouldn't have said this, or I should have said this. And here's the whole story I have in my head about how she should be treating me and how I should be treated and what other people think about me. And we go on and on in our head about that. It's just going to keep
Right.
exacerbating the anxiety, right? So we've got to take a look at what exactly, or the anger. So what exactly are we saying in our head? What are the thoughts that we have on repeat? We have to really be conscious, and that's part of why we do this process, is to become conscious of how are we talking about this? How are we talking to ourselves about what other people think about us, what we think about ourselves? And that is going to make a tremendous difference in how we experience our day and how much time we get back, because we can waste a lot of time talking some horrible things to ourselves.
Oh, yeah. That's I just wrote down the rumination rabbit hole.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it does. And once it gets started, then it can just keep going.
Yeah.
So do you have strategies on how to break that pattern? It's a pattern, right? As we get stuck in, we get triggered and then it goes, right? The pattern.
Yeah.
So
So
how do we break that?
practicing noticing your feelings and then recognizing it's just an emotion, and recognizing your natural urge is maybe to check email versus checking in with yourself and saying, hold on, what do I need? And then taking what you need, watching how your brain wants to talk to itself and starting to quiet the chatter. And the way I do that is I start to have compassion to myself. When I talk to other lawyers about this, I put it in this way. I say, how would you talk to your 4-year-old daughter if they were talking to you like you just talked to yourself, right? Like they were talking to them like that.
Sure.
So you're watching your little girl say all of these horrible things. I should have been better at this. Like I should have done this better and this better. And watching her go
Run
through
away
that.
crying.
And so we want to be that kind to ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's what I do, is when my brain does it too. My brain says, oh no, that didn't go the way I wanted. And I say, okay, hold on. Let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at the reality of the situation. And what did you do well? Like, how did, and find something that you did well. And then just say, okay, what do you want to do now? You're doing okay. You're doing pretty good. And be so kind to yourself and really give
Right.
yourself credit for the things that you are doing well.
Definitely. I think I don't know if there's a name to it, but there's some studies and some work that's done around referring to yourself in the third person. So talking to yourself, like you said, as if you were a little child, right? So saying, Penny, you've got this. Or as soon as you say your name and you're talking to yourself you're detaching, right? And so you're likely to talk to yourself in a more positive way than that rumination or whatever. And in my TEDx that I did in 2017, I talked about we have 70,000 thoughts that go through our mind in a single day. But what's really interesting is that only 5% are new. So we have these stories that we constantly repeat over and over. When we hear ourselves go into that story, right? There's that possibility, like you said, to just really notice it and maybe use a little brain hack that helps us to break it.
Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. So tell me, what haven't I asked you yet that you feel like you really wanted to share with our audience about how they can approach their time management woes and their overwhelm?
Yeah, I want to share like where I started so that they can have a place to begin, because I felt overwhelmed, I felt stressed out, and honestly, I could not see a way out. And what I started off with was doing just an easy time audit for myself. You can do this in one day. I did it for a whole week just so that I could see it for myself. And I saw how much time I was wasting doing certain things. So I got out a sheet of paper. In one column on the left, I just wrote all of the common things that I would do, whether I was on the phone, in court, I was working on files, I was talking to someone in a hallway, checking social media, checking my phone, checking email, working out, like all of those things that I would do on a regular basis. I just wrote them down in a left side column. And then along the right, I had 7 columns for the 7 days. So Sunday through Saturday. And I just started keeping track of how many hours am I on my phone? How many hours I just put little tally marks. How many time am I checking email during the day? All of those things. And I started to just get awareness of where my time was going. And I
Yeah.
realized I was flushing so much of it down the toilet. TV
Yeah.
watching was another one that was in that column, right? All of these different things, eating, checking the refrigerator, going out with friends or drinking or whatever it is I was doing. I could see how much time am I investing, and where we have our time invested tells us what we are currently valuing. So
Mm.
if you are someone who says, I really value my family and I really value quiet time together with them, but you create this audit and you look at it and that you're barely spending any time with them, and it's not even quiet time because it's noisy time, you're doing something, you're rushing to get them to bed or whatever it is, then you can say that you value that, but in this current moment, your time doesn't reflect that value. And so it'll give you the awareness to say, whoa, I didn't realize that I wasn't creating that time. Where can I start making some shifts? And that was really step one for me.
Yeah, and that's in itself creates overwhelm, right? Is that
Mhm.
you want that to be a value, but you're not achieving that. So therefore it creates discomfort, right? And so I think a time audit is absolutely valuable. Think about it. Somebody goes on a diet and they tell you to track your food. What are you eating? How much water are you drinking? Is to create that awareness as to where you're really spending your time is hugely valuable. I've found
Yeah.
that as well. So that's step one.
Yeah.
You
And
said
then,
step one.
so
You use
once you get
those
that,
terms.
yeah, once you get that awareness, you'll start to see, oh, okay, these are areas that I want to change. So for me, I started noticing areas I wanted to change by noticing that frustration. And maybe you get that information from observing your audit. Maybe you notice you're frustrated by things that are occurring on a regular basis. For me, it was me hitting the snooze button every 2 to 5 minutes or whatever it was when I was waking up in the morning. And I noticed this frustration, and I'd get up and then I'd be in a hurry and I'd have to rush. And then I was in a rush, already starting my day
Mhm.
overwhelmed. And I asked myself, what is going on? Why am I doing this? But that was the wrong question. Like, why I was doing it doesn't matter. What mattered
Right.
was is I didn't like it. What was I going to do about it?
Yeah.
So
What
the
are you going
only
to do instead?
yeah. So the only person who can change anything is me. And I said, all right, let's do this. Let's figure this out. I want to become a morning person. So how do I do that? And I say, okay, I want to wake up at this time and I want to get this done. And I just started with a hypothesis. And I think what we do is we get so attached as driven people to winning at everything that we forget that everything is a process and we can tweak things and we can still win, but we need to tweak and we need to have a hypothesis, just like we would for our business. So when
Hmm.
you go into a morning routine, you hypothesize, what's the morning routine do I think is going to give me what I want? And then you create that and then you work backwards. Oh, it didn't work today. Why didn't it work? It's not because I'm a horrible human being or I'm incapable. I don't tell myself those things. Instead, I go into my experiment and I say, okay, what do I think the potential problem is? I went to bed at midnight instead of when I thought I should, which is 10 o'clock. Why did I do that? Okay, I was watching TV. Okay, so I got to figure out at 9:30, I need to turn off the TV and say, nope, we're done, so that I can then create the morning habit that I want. So those
Hmm.
are the kinds of things that we can do, is noticing those frustrations and starting to experiment with bettering those habits so that we are creating a life that we truly enjoy versus one we're just tolerating.
Absolutely. I love that because it gives you grace. You're figuring it out as you go along. You don't have to have it all figured out. It's an acclimation period as you're working towards something that you want to change. I do that too. If I want to get up at a certain time, then I have to set a regular bedtime, right? So that there are exceptions, but that's going to help you when you set a rule and you set a bedtime, it's going to help you to follow through with it because you've set that for yourself.
Yeah.
We're coming to the end of our time. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before I ask you to share your information with everyone?
Just to be so kind to yourself when you're trying to make changes in your life, because if you are driven and you don't see immediate success, it's very easy to just say, oh, I just can't do it. I'm not capable, or this is too hard. Just to not allow yourself to give into that and instead remind yourself how powerful you really are. And all it takes is one step at a time to change your life.
Absolutely. That's great. So tell people where they can reach you.
So I have a podcast called Be a Better Lawyer, and lots of non-lawyers listen to it too. So you can go there for lots of tips about growing your business, about time management. And you can find me on LinkedIn, Dina Cataldo, and at Instagram at Dina.Cataldo.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Penny.
And thank you all for being here, lawyer or not, right? Taking a time audit is very valuable to create awareness, being aware of what you're feeling and just being with it for a moment so that you can shift it. And that in itself will help to eliminate the overwhelm and help you to move on and be more efficient and effective. And coming back, it's funny, one of the last things that Dina said was, you can do this one step at a time. And if you're familiar with my work and my reset practice, I talk about these as reset moments as part of a feedback loop that helps us make these changes one reset moment at a time, right? That helps us to move through. Definitely check out Dina's work and her podcast, and there you have it. So thank you all for being here. My name is Penny Zanker, and this is Take Back Time. Hey, thank you for spending this time with me. It really means a lot. If you're feeling a little off, distracted, overwhelmed, stuck, or just out of sync, remember that's your signal to reset. And that's all it takes, just recognizing one reset moment at a time. So stay tuned for more tips, tools, tricks, stories, strategies, all here on Time to Reset. We'll see you in the next episode.